And I think we'll start. Thank you so much to all of you who are joining us from various parts of the world and the country for this Friday conversation in the week that falls between what would have been our homecoming and family weekend celebrations. We really wish we were sitting in Johnson Chapel with all of you and having this conversation, but in this world, this is the next best thing. I have a few details to start our conversation. Thanks first to those of you who've submitted questions in advance of this conversation. We hope to get to many of those. You can also submit questions using the Q&A square on the bottom of your screen. Just click that, submit your question, and we've got a behind the scenes team who is making sure that we get those to us. Whatever we don't get to, we'll be sure to either get back to you or post on our website. Our time together is limited, just about an hour. The event is being recorded, so I'd like you to all know that, and all the microphones are muted. We're really fortunate today to have with us, in addition, of course, to our president, Biddy Martin, a number of members of the senior staff who together have been working to navigate these last 8 months. But let me talk a little bit and just introduce our president to you, who probably needs very little introduction. But I'll start with the fact that since we're in New England, we have to start talking about the weather. 10 years ago, Biddy Martin arrived on the campus in the fall of 2011. And just weeks after her arrival, a huge snowstorm this very weekend blanketed the area, closing the college unexpectedly for more than a week. She was probably pretty popular at that point, canceling classes and for a couple of days, something that had never happened at Amherst College. And here we are again, experiencing something that is really a once in a decade kind of thing at Amherst, with snow on the ground still falling since about 7 o'clock this morning. We're now also experiencing a once in a century thing that our president has navigated through the pandemic, which doesn't seem to have much of an end in sight, but she's continuing to lead us through that. And I don't think when she joined us, she ever expected these kinds of storms of so many kinds, weather and otherwise, to have marked the decade at Amherst. But I know all of my colleagues on the senior staff and all of us here in the community are so appreciative to have this president at this time working with us to make sure that Amherst remains the place that we all know and love for the generations to come. Biddy Martin has led our college with courage, with conviction, with wisdom. She puts the students first. She's here 24/7 since the day she set foot on campus. She has put her arms firmly around this community. We feel it, we appreciate it, and it's helped us to keep moving. And this college will be here for the next group of people who are celebrating 200 years from now. So Biddy, I want to turn it to you with thanks, with appreciation, and with hope that we'll be all together next year in Johnson Chapel for this very same conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. That was a beautiful introduction. And I feel like I want to begin simply by saying back at you. To all the members of the senior staff who, along with our frontline staff and all the other staff at the college, have been working literally night and day since March, virtually with no break. If anyone had one, it was not noticeable to anyone. And all of that to ensure that we can continue to educate students and that our faculty are supported in doing that. So thanks to all of you. And thanks to those of you who joined us today. I was gonna say it's noon in Amherst, but it's, as Betsy pointed out, many other times where you are. I hope you got to see the live stream shot. I woke up this morning, we all woke up, those of us in Amherst, to our first snowfall. It looks like we won't have more than a dusting to an inch or two, but it's beautiful. And interestingly, this, I believe, though my lens may be distorted, this may have been the most beautiful fall of the 10 falls I will have spent here. The colors this year have been gorgeous. The weather has cooperated, and we needed that. We needed our students our faculty and our staff to be able to enjoy the beauty of this campus, the beauty of the sanctuary, the beauty of the bike path, the beauty of the trails and the mountains in the distances. We needed that because of the pandemic, of course. And we have been fortunate that the weather has up till now been good enough for our students and the rest of us to spend many, many hours out of doors enjoying this gorgeous place. I know all of you who are joining who are alumni have fond memories of the beauty of Amherst and the campus it surrounds. I wish you were here so that you could enjoy it in person. And soon, I hope, we'll all be able to gather in person. Amherst is doing well. Many of you will have read the very long fall update I sent recently. And if you manage to make it through the whole letter, you'll know that we, relatively speaking, and given the circumstances, have been doing very well here. When I say we've been doing well, what I mean is that we have had students on campus and students studying remotely who've reported that they have found to date their educational experience, their academic work and courses to have been either very satisfying or generally satisfying. They've seen improvement in what the faculty can offer remotely over what faculty were able to do last spring when they had to make a shift literally virtually overnight or within a week from their ordinary ways of teaching our students to something entirely different. I think many of you know, and those of you who read the update will remember that over 90% of our faculty spent their summer giving up their research time in order to work on their online teaching skills. And it seems clear that the work they did will have paid off beautifully, given the feedback we're getting from students and also from faculty. And our provost and dean of the faculty, Catherine Epstein, led that effort, made sure that it was easily available to the faculty, and has really strengthened our teaching and learning program at Amherst to a point where it is trusted by the faculty and sought out for what it can offer them as they seek to improve their teaching more or less continually, even when not in a pandemic. So we thank them too. The staff has risen to the challenge, the faculty has risen to the challenge, and to say the least, our frontline staff has risen to the challenge. And life on campus, of course, has not been normal, and it has been easier for some students than for others. Overall, we have managed, especially in the second half of the semester, to offer opportunities for students to come together, though not in large groups closely grouped together, but still in larger events. And the students' gratitude for the ability to have Fall Fest this year in a spread out fashion, their delight at the Mammoth Day we called, which was a surprise canceling of classes for one day to give students, staff, and faculty a break. All of that has elicited very positive feedback from our students and a great deal of appreciation. It's striking how many students in their surveys wrote comments, optional comments about their appreciation of the faculty and also of the staff who've made this possible for them. Nonetheless, the restrictions on them are not easy. The restrictions are not easy on any of us. We've had very few positive cases, fewer than a handful over the course of time, and only 3 students who tested positive in the beginning of the semester. So we have had great luck, thanks to a testing program that we were able to put in place by virtue of the the generosity, really the public spiritedness of the Broad Institute for Genomics in Cambridge, led by Eric Lander, and a phenomenal scientist, as many of you know. We had great advice, as I've written to you before, from our alumni in public health and medicine. And from the point of view of preserving health, I think things have gone, and I hope they will continue to go well as it becomes colder and things have to move indoors. We've now made plans for the spring, and we announced them 2 days ago and answered questions about them in a webinar last night. We are happy to be able to bring 3 classes to campus as opposed to 2 this semester. So we're inviting juniors, seniors, and first-year students. We believe we can do this because we're still able to house everyone in a single room. That's important not only for prevention of transmission, but also so that students have privacy for studying and for any forms of support they might seek out on their own remotely. So everyone will have a single. We will open up a dorm that we use this semester for quarantine and will secure other quarantine rooms elsewhere. So we're pleased that we can have more. We wish we could have everyone, but we don't believe that it makes sense to invite all students to campus at this point. We'll continue our testing protocols, and we'll have very strict rules for the very first week or 2 on campus. And then based on what we've learned this semester, we will try to loosen restrictions over time, all depending, of course, on the transmission rates in our region and on our campus, and always following the best public health advice we can find. Student mental health is a concern. I have just come from a meeting that I decided to attend, which was giving national data on the mental health problems of young people in the country. And the estimates are alarming, simply for the percentage of students who are feeling anxiety and depression, but also how many young people, whether students or not, whether on campuses or studying remotely, have in the past several weeks had suicidal ideation. And this is very concerning to all of us. And to be honest, of course, mental health issues are now being confronted by all age groups. And we know that it's the combination of the pandemic, the upcoming election, the division in the country, the stark displays of the forms of racism, both bigotry and also systemic racism, that continue to create difficulties for us all, and in particular for people of color. And one of the things the psychologist who lectured this morning pointed out is that helplessness is something that animals, including human animals, learn very quickly. And it's very important that we intentionally, concertedly, and actively help one another and our students in particular, since they are our primary concern, learn a sense of agency and rekindle a sense of hope, despite all of the problems and obstacles that we all face. And we have a number of programs in place to do that. We're certainly particularly concerned about how students will feel, not only students, but certainly indicatively our students, over the course of the next week or weeks, given that we don't know what the outcome will be of the election or how prolonged the uncertainty might be. And regardless of how anyone feels about the outcome, the difficulty of uncertainty and a feeling that there isn't much one can do the feeling, as one student recently put it to me, that maybe even our votes won't count, is contributing to the difficulties that people are feeling. So we have, with these recent gatherings out of doors that we have made happen, been lucky again to be able to pull students out of the dorms, out of their rooms, out of their studies, and give them an opportunity to have simple, vibrant forms of fun. And our student affairs staff is busy working on how we can do that through the winter. And we will make sure that we have support for students. We have begun making plans for next week and the weeks that follow. The combination of fun, fellowship, and emotional and psychological support where it's needed will help us help our students get through the rest of the semester and the coming months. We want to help students enjoy one another and enjoy Amherst over the long haul to an even greater degree than students always have. And so work on the Student Center continues. We have not paused the work of design on a new Student Center, and we don't intend to pause that work. To say that Keefe is inadequate is vastly to understate the case, as I know many of our alumni are aware. And Herzog and de Muren, the Swiss architects, have shown us a conceptual design that is beautiful and which also will give students something they don't have here, which is space indoors, which showcases the beauty of the outdoors, but also is a place where they can gather for forms of recreation, interaction, dining, the dining center, the dining commons that will be on the first couple of floors of this new student center will replace Val, which is unfortunately outliving its usefulness size-wise and also from the point of view of infrastructure. We're very excited about this project. It couldn't be a higher priority for me. I want very badly to make Amherst not only, I think, the place where the best available liberal arts education is offered, but also the place where students have the greatest opportunities to build community, to enjoy one another, and to interact regardless of weather or circumstance. Sustainability remains one of our other highest priorities, and I wanted to reiterate what I said in my fall update, and that is that the Climate Action Plan is proceeding apace. We're not pausing that either. And over the summer, geothermal wells, test wells were drilled, and the results were even better than we had anticipated, which is great news. In the construction of the Student Center and all other projects we're doing, we are also radically reducing the embedded carbon involved in construction, and we aim to make our goal of being carbon neutral by 2030. Finally, our bicentennial. We had intended to start celebrating and involve all of you in the celebration this semester. We've put it on pause, our events, until the spring and fall of 21, which keeps us within our 200th anniversary year. But some of what we're doing to celebrate is already underway or even available. So there is a bicentennial website with extraordinary photographs and archival materials, which is something I hope you'll visit and make use of. It's really a wonderful website, and you'll see some features that will allow you to compare in a very visual way Amherst across the 200 years. In addition, we have a bicentennial book, a tabletop book that will be out soon. And it too celebrates the history, not by doing a chronological narrative account of the history of Amherst, but by giving us a sense of particular moments and highlights through the history of Amherst in a way that is both, what do I want to say, historically interesting, but also quirky in the best possible way. In addition, our music department has commissioned an opera, which will be performed hopefully in the fall. And there are a number of other projects, including Sonia Clark's anti-racism art project, which already involves a number of alumni and will involve student work that is also underway. We'll let you know more about events as conditions evolve over the next months, and we hope we're going to see all of you on this campus. Those of you who've not been here since the Science Center appeared and the East Campus was redone are really in for a treat. I know many of you have come to see how the campus has changed. It is even more beautiful than it was, if that's possible. And yet the iconic quad, the center, the heart of the campus, is no less central than it ever was. Its beauty, the beauty of the campus, has been a balm during these months of COVID and the need to spend more time isolated from one another. One walk on the Amherst campus, one sighting of students enjoying the out of doors or the Book and Plow Farm has lifted my spirits every time I've been able to experience it. So let me stop here, having given you a few highlights, and let's find out what you really want to know. Betsy, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you, Biddy. I think I'll turn it to Catherine, our provost and dean of the faculty. And Catherine, could you talk a little bit about some of the lessons learned from the fall semester, some of the successes, some of the challenges? And it's particularly interesting to think of the fact that we have faculty on our campus who've been here for almost half a century, and we have faculty on the campus who have been here for just a few months. And so how those groups help each other, learn from each other, how does that all play?
Wow, well, thank you, Betsy, and welcome everyone. So I think what we've learned this semester is how innovative our faculty are. That's one thing in terms of the sort of pedagogies that they've deployed. Yes, they are in conversation with many more senior faculty, or if they're senior faculty, they are in touch with their more junior colleagues. But I think what we've learned is that there is an awful lot of conversation about pedagogy that is ongoing at Amherst right now. And that is really strengthening our faculty as a teaching faculty. We've heard numerous examples of both older faculty and younger faculty engaging in really innovative ways of teaching. They've been very heavily focused on ways to engage students in the classroom. And I think that if there's a silver lining to this pandemic, and there aren't many, but I think one is really the sort of innovative teaching methods that faculty are learning this semester. I think some of them will end up changing how they teach in ways that will ultimately invigorate teaching at the college. They are figuring out many different ways of working with students with many different aptitudes and skills, and working on how best to reach students most effectively. So I think this has created a fabulous conversation among the faculty that we would not normally be having. And I think that that conversation in turn will really change for the better how much faculty engage with students. I think also something that senior faculty have really inculcated with into junior faculty is just how dedicated the faculty is to students. And I think that has just become so clear this semester. Most faculty, really all faculty, have had to push away some of their research obligations in order to serve faculty, in order to serve students. And they have done so very willingly. They believe that is their mission, and they have done so really pretty well. So President Martin referred to some of the student survey results that we saw. And what we've learned is that students are really basically pretty satisfied with their academic experience this semester. So again, I wouldn't wish a pandemic on us in order to gain these good things, the sort of more faculty conversation around pedagogy, new innovative pedagogical strategies, but it is one thing that has come out of this pandemic.
Catherine, if you'll stay with us for a moment, I think another thing that is soon approaching is the January term. And that is something that I'm imagining many of the alumni on the phone wish they had the opportunity to undertake with a course during January. So could you talk a little bit about that, please?
So I'd love to talk about that a little bit. We are, for the first time in many years, I believe there was a January term maybe 50 or 60 years ago, but in many, many years, we have not had a January term. We are having a 4-week January term where students will take one course that counts as a regular Amherst College course. They are expected to spend 40 hours a week on that course, and it will be a very intensive course. All introductory psychology, for example, is being taught in January. There are, I think, almost 200 students taking that course in multiple small sections of the class. And many students are excited about the opportunity to do something during that period of time that typically we have not done a lot of programming at the college. I understand that about 960 students, so well over half of our students, are signed up for a January course, and we are excited about the experiment, about the pilot. We've committed to doing a January term in 2022, but we don't know if we're going to do it after that. We'd really like to see how this works out and how students fare during the term, and how faculty, how it works for them as well.
Thank you. Kevin Wyman, our Chief Financial and Administrative Officer at the college. This one's for you. We've had a number of questions about the impact of COVID on the college's budget, and I wonder if you would just talk a little bit broadly about the kind of work and thinking you're doing about that.
Sure. Yeah, that's a big question. Thanks for it. So, yeah, the financial impacts. We've thought of COVID first and foremost, rightly, as a health crisis, as a situation of what do we need to do to continue to teach students in the midst of a pandemic. But it also comes with significant financial implications, most significantly on the comprehensive fee side. So when we have students who take a leave or study from home, those are lost revenues to the college, at the same time that we have significant increases in expenses to make all this possible, particularly around the testing program that Biddy mentioned before, which, while we're extremely fortunate to have it, it is expensive, and it is a new cost of teaching students in the midst of a pandemic. So we've done a number of things that we've done for years now, but have accelerated around cost containment. The senior team was really wonderful in rebudgeting over the summer, finding savings where possible without impacting the student experience and the teaching experience here at the college. We have for years cautiously managed how we spent the endowment, which allowed us to go to the Board of Trustees over the summer and ask for permission for a one-time endowment liquidation of $12 million, for which they readily agreed. And at this point, our spending from the endowment, even with that additional spending this year to cover the costs of the pandemic, still maintains in a very reasonable and healthy place. And we know longer term that the effects of the pandemic are going to be with us for a while. So we have been already previewing around campus the need to be thinking long term around finding additional savings and efficiencies, while continuing to invest in making sure that we can continue to teach no matter what the future holds. I wish I had a crystal ball around what would happen or what will happen with the pandemic. We've been very fortunate so far on the endowment, whose valuation has fared fairly well. One of the surprises of the pandemic is that investment markets still have maintained their strength. We hope that continues, but we're preparing for a wide range of possibilities going forward. And thankfully, a lot of the work we've been doing for years around maintaining caution with respect to spending in the budget is serving us well now.
Excellent, thank you. Karu, could you give us a little snapshot of life on campus?
Sure. Welcome, everyone. It's good to be able to be with you all today. So every day is a new adventure, and with adventures comes with a lot of different emotions, excitement, a little nervousness, and a sprinkle of necessary resolve to be able to deal with the unknown. So students are making major adjustments to added expectations. You know, Kevin talked a little bit about how we invested a lot in our health and safety for students. So students are testing on a regular basis, and they have to integrate that into their class schedule. Students are trying to figure out how they can connect with each other, considering that some of the students are off campus that they might have known before and some are on campus. So they're trying new approaches. They're trying to figure out what group formation means, but they're also discovering new things. President Martin mentioned how wonderful the fall has been in terms of the weather. There's been a greater appreciation and I think investment for students to be able to understand what it's like to be at a New England college. And just to be out on Memorial Hill or just to be able to go to the Book and Plow, which has become very popular for students to just visit, so they can understand a lot of things that they may have taken for granted before, which is just to be together, talk. I've talked to a few students, undergraduates, who we do have some seniors on campus who were around a tent and were talking and they were getting tired and looked at their watch and it was 10 p.m. and they were like, how are we tired at 10 p.m.? And they're sort of discovering they're getting older, but they appreciated the opportunity just to be able to be around each other and talk and understand what growth is like. So it is a new adventure, one that has challenges, but they are discovering a lot of things. And we hope we can take those discoveries post-pandemic. What it means to be part of a community is even more important today than ever before. The health and safety of everyone in the community rests upon each individual's commitment to that. And I think that is something we can build on for the future, regardless of whether we're in a pandemic or not.
Thank you, Karu. And I neglected to properly introduce Karu. Karu Kozuma is our Chief Student Affairs Officer, and he is there, I believe, in his office in Converse, because our Student Affairs team, as you might imagine, is fully present on the campus there for the students, supporting them. So thank you, Karu, for doing that for all of us and helping with the students. Matt, could you comment a bit on the impact on admission and financial aid of this pandemic? And this is Matt McGann, our Dean of Admission and Financial Aid.
Yeah, hi, it's great to be here with all of you. And, you know, lots of work has been upended across the world by the pandemic, and admission and financial aid are no different. I'll maybe touch briefly on admission before talking about financial aid and how we're supporting our students right now. You know, on the admission side, we haven't had a campus visitor or given a campus tour since March. You know, normally this is the time of the year where we'd be going out and scouring the country and the world for the best students for Amherst, and that has not been a part of the admission process for any students this year. So everyone's learning virtually, and everyone is visiting colleges virtually. It's been really interesting to translate all of those recruitment efforts to a virtual space. It's been exciting to translate some new programs into a virtual space. Over the summer, we had a series of programs for alumni and alumni of the college who have children who are approaching college age. And we were able to bring in speakers from around the country to that in a way that might have been challenging if it was an in-person program. And I think those programs went really well. And we also were able to launch a virtual global program, bringing together Amherst with 5 other liberal arts colleges to really tell the story of the liberal arts and to help students really understand all of the benefits of an education at a place like Amherst that you can't get at a big research university. So that's been exciting. On the financial aid side, though, more importantly, we have really turned our attention to supporting students and families as best we can in these very challenging financial times. You heard from Kevin Wyman earlier about the various financial stresses at the college, but also lots of financial stresses from our families. So we have moved quickly to evolve our financial aid programs for the times to support our students and families as best possible. For example, in a typical year, we ask students, many students, to work as a part of giving back, contributing towards their education. Work study has long been a part of financing colleges for students and families. But work is not really available in the same way this year, both on Amherst campus and beyond. So we've replaced that expectation with Amherst Grant for all students. And it comes at no small expense to the college, but it was the right thing to do. And I think that's the Amherst way, is to put student wellness and student needs first. For those students who, by choice or by necessity, are learning away from campus, learning remotely, we have made sure that they have a personal allowance in their financial aid that allows them to be able to have all those expenses taken care of. And not only that, but for students with technology issues who are learning away from campus, we've been able to support them in a whole bunch of ways, including wireless hotspots for students without access to Wi-Fi and a whole host of other things. So we want to make sure that we're supporting all of our students financially and otherwise as best as possible. And we'll continue to do this, I think, until the end of the pandemic. This is the Amherst way, to support students regardless of their background and regardless of their resources, to make sure that every student can access this amazing educational opportunity that we provide.
Thank you, Matt. I'm now going to turn to Jim Brassard, who's our Chief of Campus Operations. Jim, too, is in his office, and perhaps the largest number of staff who are on campus are with Jim's team through either our campus grounds, custodial operations, and our dining services, all essential to keeping our students safe, fed, warm, and so forth. Jim, could you talk a little bit, just give us a sketch of what's happening with dining on campus, and maybe tie that into some of Biddy's earlier remarks about the student center and that transition of facility to that site, to the student center site?
Well, absolutely. Thanks, Betsy, and hello, everybody. Our staff are deeply committed to providing critical services to our students and have been really committed to that effort over the past months. And nowhere is that more demonstrated than in dining. In dining, what they've been able to do is change really the full dining model and move towards a grab and go approach, where we have not just a singular dining facility, but multiple dining facilities. And the culinary team has put in a significant effort around designing a enticing and delicious and nutritious menu that the students have really appreciated. Also, knowing that our students in the current mode would appreciate having some connections to the broader community, we've developed partnerships with local restaurants, and we've brought in features and surprises to our students to enhance their experiences. I'm sure many are familiar with Antonio's Pizzas or with Bueno y Sana, and those features have helped to bring a sense of positivity and normalcy in some ways to our campus, and has been much appreciated by our students. We, as Biddy had talked about, the pandemic and the past months have just underscored the critical need for new space on our campus, and no time has that been more evident. So there is great excitement around the Student Center, and we're pleased to say that in the Student Center, we will be able to and are planning to create a new dining commons. Dining commons that is consistent with some of the real great innovations for dining for colleges and universities. Valentine, as it stands now, is a very traditional model and has limitations on the basis of its infrastructure and its space. But this new facility that we'll be developing The combination of a student center and a dining commons affords us the opportunity to really enhance the dining experience, but more importantly, to bring energy and synergy to this new facility by co-locating these two functions. And our architect, Herzog and Demeron, has brought a level of creativity and innovation and will truly design spectacular architecture that will help to elevate both of these facilities. So we're engaging the full community in this effort now and soliciting input and feedback, and we'll be working through the design in the coming months and are very excited about this.
Thank you, Jim. We've had some NESCAC questions, and I think there's a kind of multiple pieces of those, and this might be Biddy, Catherine, and perhaps Matt together. Biddy, maybe a little bit about how the NESCAC presidents have coordinated and worked together over these months and decisions that have been made collectively and then independently. There are a couple of questions about other NESCAC schools making decisions to bring back larger numbers of students or allow the bubbles to open up a little bit more and the students to interact, to have roommates, things like that. So we could address that. And then there's the athletic piece of NESCAC. What are the implications for winter, spring seasons? Does that roll over into any admission questions? So that's a big ticket on NESCAC, but shall I start with you, Biddy?
I'll do my best, and then my colleagues will fill in where I've left things out. We have a NESCAC president's meeting on November 12th, and we'll begin, but probably not conclude, discussions about spring sports. And it's very difficult to know right now whether there can be a sports competition in the spring, and no decision has been made. That's for sure. When it comes to comparisons across NESCAC institutions, I think it's crucial to remember with regard to how many students the different institutions have invited back onto campus. Important to remember that with the exception of Tufts, most of our NESCAC peers are in areas where there is no large research university down the street. We are fortunate to be in a more populated, more densely populated area. It's the reason a lot of students come here, because of the 5-college consortium. But it also means that with UMass bringing thousands and thousands of students back, not only to live on campus, but thousands living off campus, it's a very different circumstance for us. And not only do we take that into account when it comes to safety, but the town of Amherst and the surrounding region has asked us, understandably, to take all of these conditions into account when we think about how densely populated the area should be, given healthcare resources and other things. But even more importantly, in terms of the numbers and the reason not to bring all students back, is our view that having students in single rooms matters, both from the point of view of the risk of transmission, but also for privacy. And so we are working with the number of single rooms that we can make available. And we believe that we obviously believe we're doing the right thing for Amherst students. We'd love to be able to bring all students back, but our location differs significantly and our situation differs from those institutions like Bates or Colby or Bowdoin or Williams that are more isolated and, as I said, are not across the street from a large research university. That's accounts for some of the difference. And let's see, spring sports. I'm not sure what else I can remember to answer right now. So why don't I ask Catherine and Matt to fill in where I have failed to answer all the questions.
Well, I think we might want to talk a little bit about what's available to students. So most of our sports facilities are available to students right now. you know, the gym, the pool, the fitness center, the tennis courts, playing fields, as long as not too many students are congregating on the playing fields. Those are all recreational activities available to students. In addition, the teams are practicing. So fall sports have been practicing all fall. Those practices are soon going to conclude. Winter sports have started practicing. Of course, they can't compete interscholastically, so or intercollegiately. So they are practicing and having some team activities. We, as President Martin said, we don't yet know about spring sports, but we do know that spring teams can start practicing in mid-February, and that also the fall sports teams can actually have a season at the end of the academic year, starting at the end of March. So, you know, a lot will depend on what NESCAC decides, and also, of course, how the pandemic unfolds. But there are quite a good number of opportunities short of intercollegiate competition that athletes and the rest of the student body can partake in.
Yeah, and I live close to Pratt Field and regularly see individual students, but also teams out there, and getting to, you know, practice their sports and enjoy each other's company and work together. And I'm as anxious as anyone for our teams to be back out there. You know, I love going out to Pratt Field, going over to LaFrac or Rink to Hitchcock Field to see our teams doing their thing. It's part of what makes being at a residential liberal arts college like ours really wonderful. We do see that among the returning student athletes, that a number of them have taken a leave, and they tell us in part that they want to preserve some time at Amherst, not only in a non-pandemic time broadly, but also specifically to be able to finish out their college athletic careers. So we'll have a number of students coming back to compete one last time, which will be nice. That does add one more complication to recruiting the next year's group of students, on top of the fact that you know, there aren't really the kinds of camps and clinics and opportunities for coaches to see students in person. And actually, in many parts of the country, high school sports are not happening, or are not happening in the same way. But it's been really great to see the coaches rise to the challenge. And you know, I would say that they're out recruiting some of the other places. What I've heard from some of the coaches is that they think that the group of student athletes that they'll bring in to this coming year's first year class are as good as they've ever been able to recruit, not only on the field, but also what they're going to bring to the classrooms and the dorms and the broader Amherst community. So kudos to the coaches on that. It's been a great partnership as both they and the admission office have both been trying to recruit in a virtual space. But I think Amherst is going to be in really great shape in enrolling the kinds of students and the kinds of student athletes more specifically that really make us proud to be part of the Amherst family.
Betsy?
Yes.
It just occurred to me it would be interesting to the audience to learn that our students have put together an extraordinary voting project, and AC Votes, which is run by students and supported by the head of student activities and student affairs. What I wanted to mention in light of our discussion of athletics is that there are a large number of athletics teams that have already achieved 100% voting. And so kudos to them.
And I'll also add to that the encouragement to the entire Amherst community, the faculty and staff, that's happening across offices, and so much enthusiasm for whole teams of whole divisions across the campus to be out, to be voting, to be supporting the polls, and the college's support of that. We have a couple of comments and questions that I would say largely circle around the lobe. So Catherine, this will come to you. But thank you for the very nice comment, is about the unique advantage of the Amherst College community and its ability to bring together multiple generations spanning over half a century, and facilitating conversations and opportunities between and among alumni and students. I think no place do we see that more than in the Loeb Center, in the opportunity that our alumni and families can help opportunities provide for our students and the philanthropic support they've offered to support those internships. But really the question, so the second part of that, a question from another person, is that the Loeb Center helps students get ready to enter the world after graduation. Is this impossibly hard given the COVID-19 pandemic world? So Catherine, a chance to talk specifically about that question, but also about the Loeb, which is a very different place than I would venture most people on this phone remember.
So thank you for that question. And the Loeb Center is, one of many jewels at Amherst, but the Loeb Center has changed quite dramatically in recent years. It is no longer a place where seniors go to try and get help with their resumes. Instead, the Loeb Center is very much focused on students over the arc of their careers at the college. And so lots of outreach begins already during the first year, or even actually just as students are admitted to the college and come to campus, either virtually or in person, we hope soon. There are already programs with the Loeb Center. So the Loeb Center, we are really working on making sure that all of our students, particularly students who have perhaps less social capital than others, that they are helped through the Loeb Center so that they are set up and ready to go once they graduate from the college. We have a Meiklejohn Fellows program, which includes all students who have a parental contribution of $5,000 or less and or who are first generation students. And all of them are Meiklejohn Fellows. And that means that all of them get a summer of support through the Loeb Center in order to have an internship or some other really meaningful research or other opportunity that will help them to explore their ultimate career interests. The Loeb Center is, it's a challenging environment right now in the virtual world. The Loeb Center is operating entirely virtually. So all appointments, all recruiting, everything is happening virtually. But my sense is to the extent that people are hiring, Amherst College students are being hired. The offers are going out to students for all sorts of internships during their the summer between their junior and senior year. And while we don't at the moment have quite the same numbers of students who already have offers post-graduation, we are, it's not too bad. And I think that Emily Griffin, the director of the Loeb Center, is very optimistic about how our seniors will do and also how our past seniors, the class of 2020, how it's done. So it's challenging, but it's not insurmountable. And if anyone can do it, the Loeb Center can do it.
Thank you, Catherine. I'll take one question that the news on this was just shared yesterday, but it is about what plans the college that we have to provide opportunities for the folks who missed reunion last year in 2020. And I'm sorry to say that we just shared the news yesterday with our volunteers and via e-news with the entire alumni population that we will not be having in-person reunion in 2021, which was the time we had hoped to welcome the 2020 reunion classes back. But we have every intention of working together with all of the classes that are missing reunion to find opportunities when we're able to gather in large numbers on campus to have that happen. In the meantime, to continue to facilitate the virtual conversations and connections. Believe me, we never imagined missing reunion, not once, but twice. And it makes us so incredibly sad, but we know it's the right thing. And we want all of you to be safe and to be here and to be able to enjoy this with us when it's the right time. Karu, a question about mental health support and resources both on campus and off for the remote students. And then we'll probably have time for just one more question after that.
Sure. The mental health support, as President Martin highlighted before, is a definitely critical component of what we do on a daily basis. So it's not just within the counseling center, but it's a lot of different departments working in concert with each other to make sure if a student is experiencing a struggle, that we can identify that struggle and start to speak to each other, whether it's the class deans getting a notification from a faculty member that a student's missed class, or if it's a resident sending in a care team report indicating they're worried about a friend. So then our case management folks will reach out immediately to the student and check in how they're doing. We also wanted to make sure that those support networks are available to students who aren't on campus. So the class deans, case managers, the counseling center are in constant contact with students who are studying remotely. We've even added a feature called My SSP, which is my student support program, which is an app that all students can download, and it provides a lot of different resources that are both in the hands of students to be able to engage on their own. But if they do need resources, local areas, this program could help connect them to those resources in addition to our case manager and a counseling center. So we're trying to provide as much as we can and make sure that we're in touch with each other whenever there's a student who may be of concern to us.
Thank you, Karu. And we're coming on the end of the hour. So I think I'm going to turn it back to Biddy and just with a couple of questions and then whatever you'd like to add, Biddy. So there's, of course, a great deal of interest in what's going to happen in the spring semester. And then in particular, a question about graduation ceremony for the class of 2021. So you could share some of your hopes for the spring and how we continue to make the right and best decisions going forward.
Well, I did see that there was a question about commencement for the class of 21. And, you know, it seems at this moment unlikely that we can have a traditional commencement ceremony. But having said that, given that the seniors will be on campus, we don't see a reason why there cannot be a celebration of our seniors and their graduation. It will have to be consistent with public health guidelines, of course. And right now it's hard to imagine having families on the campus for a commencement ceremony, but we'll see what happens over the next months. So as for the spring semester, you know, we're obviously, well, I should speak for myself. I'm looking forward to it just as I look forward to the fall. I love the idea of having even more students here. We're focused, obviously, on making sure we not only support the students who need it, but that we prevent students from needing support to the degree possible by having planned activities and opportunities for students to take hold of their education, their lives, their social worlds, and have an experience that will serve them for a lifetime. As I said to some of them recently, we wouldn't choose this, but it is an opportunity for every single one of them to learn how to rise to a very difficult challenge, how jointly to solve problems and come up with ideas and solutions for dealing with a complex set of challenges of the sort we all face. And in fact, at the moment, we have 2 student advisory groups. And I was thinking this morning about the roles that they play, particularly the COVID Student Advisory Committee, with whom we've been meeting. I've been meeting and my colleagues have met at various times since the spring. We want to give students opportunities, given the circumstances, to feel as though their voice matters, that they can have some confidence that they're being heard and that they are contributing to the decisions that we make. That this is a partnership, despite the fact that we in the end are accountable for the decisions we make. But there's probably never been a more important time to give students a sense of as much autonomy as they can have, but also as much impact as they can possibly have, so that the hopelessness that so many young people are feeling is countered with a concerted effort to engage them in opportunities to make a difference. And they are making a difference. They are seizing those opportunities, whether remotely or in person. And we'll keep trying to be imaginative about how to make that even more possible. So spring, which will begin in the dead of winter, will present its own challenges. We will certainly keep you all updated. And I just want to end by thanking my colleagues and also thanking all of you for being here, and send you my wishes that you stay well, that you perhaps that you are well, that you stay well, and that you'll stay in touch with the college. One of my colleagues said a sense of community has never been more important. Whether it ever has been or not, this period certainly makes evident how important it is to experience a sense of community. And even though the virtual doesn't substitute for the in-person, I hope that we are offering enough programming for you, enough information and communication to lead you to feel that the community persists. It has for 200 years, and it not only persists, it aspires, and often, very often, excels. So thank you for joining us, and be well.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful day. We really enjoyed being with you.